Next week on Thursday, Chapter 20. Sigmund. Gloria sat down in the chair across from me. There was weariness beneath the businesslike facade. I felt sorry for her. "What can I do to help ease your burden?" I asked. Before she could reply, Harold jabbed at his keyboard. A single word appeared on the screen. Delegate. Gloria's eyebrows rose into a creased forehead. She wasn't in the mood for jokes. Harold chose not to notice and continued to type, unperturbed. "I've put on some flesh on my rear." I chuckled. That must make sitting so much more comfortable. Gloria relaxed and leaned back in her chair. How does he continue to do it? Surely he must have moments when he just wanted to scream. Harold was on a roll. He poked the keyboard and the words tumbled all over the screen. "Show Selena your piece." Gloria lifted her arm and I bent my head to admire an avant-garde bracelet wrapped around her wrist. A black leather strap held in place by two shiny buttons. She turned her hand, palm upwards, allowing me to examine the detail in the cameo work of art. The glasswork was exquisite. I had noticed it the moment she walked into the room. "Lisa?" I guessed. Yes. The glow of pride on her face was reflected in his. He came alive when he talked about his family. "She has inherited her mother's artistic talent," I remarked. "Oh, she's her father's daughter," Gloria countered. We paused as Harold's fingers worked at the keyboard. "Lisa is my devilish alter ego." I knew that. He'd said that many times in our conversations. Gloria sat bolt upright in her chair. "I almost forgot," she said. "I promised to drive Jordan to get something for Sigmund." She ran to the phone in the corridor. Sigmund? "Sigmund is a kind of a reptile," Gloria announced when she returned. "My grandson's pet, not a snake." Harold's fingers moved on the keyboard to interject. "A lizard." Gloria nodded. She relaxed in the client's chair across from me, and the two of us fell into conversation. Harold was forgotten for the moment. "It's wonderful to see the change a week has brought," I said. "The peg tube has done wonders." "The doctor assured us we would see an actual weight gain in a few weeks," she answered, then added, "It's so easy to communicate using the computer." "So how do you communicate at home?" I inquired. "Oh, I do all the talking. He writes on a piece of paper if he feels he has to." He's consigned to total non-communication the moment he steps out of this office. "You're a bad speller," Gloria observed, catching a typo on the screen. Harold's eyes laughed when he met mine. He knew I remembered the comment he'd made some weeks back. "I barely manage to get by and people say I'm a bad speller." He began to tell his wife about the previous evening. I leaned back in my chair and observed them. Decades of matrimony hung over them like a warm cloak. For a few brief moments, they were cocooned in their own private world, and I was the intruder. They belonged with each other. Harold wrote, "Sister snored all evening and the smoke alarm went off." "What triggered it off?" Gloria asked. Not the snores, surely? What did you do? His fingers took up their labored tapping. I turned the TV up as loud as possible. And he added wryly, I wasn't able to do much reading. He glanced at me, then typed, My wife went to a party. I burst out laughing. I looked at Gloria and spluttered, He's saying you were fiddling while Rome was burning. She threw me a long-suffering look. It was my sister's 60th birthday, she said sourly. I had to go. Harold's face gleamed with mischief. Once more his eyes began their delightful dance. It's not what he says, I gurgled. You have to read between the lines. It was a delicious moment. She didn't get it. I can't believe she slept, Gloria persisted. She turned to me. My sister-in-law babysat her little brother last evening. I think she was working this week. She must have been tired. Harold had had an eventful evening and wasn't physically capable of telling his wife about it. Until now. Tragic. The main door beeped and announced the arrival of the repairman. Gloria stepped outside to meet him. I sat still while Harold checked his email. His messages, all in large print, popped up on the screen facing me. I felt like I was eavesdropping on a private conversation and kept looking away. I couldn't avert my eyes, however, when I found myself eyeball to eyeball with an article about Lou Gehrig's disease. My eyes raced down the screen. The message ended on a grim note. Patients usually die within 5 years of diagnosis. Who in their right mind would send him such a thing? It's from a friend, he wrote dispassionately. He'd seen me reading it. Some friend. Why, for heaven's sake? Harold and I looked up at the identical moment. He held my gaze steadily for several seconds. I could feel the heaviness of his pain. I found nothing to say. I dropped my eyes and stared intently at my lacquered fingernails. The lump leapt back into my throat. I found myself at an uncharacteristic loss for words. I was all out. I had no more platitudes to offer. To be continued.